Hello and welcome to the Opinionated Experience, a show where we discuss how to drive business impact through software, human-centered design, digital transformation, and more with leaders who want to get stuff done. Whether you're a product owner, an operational leader, IT professional, this show is for you. It's about getting enterprise software that works and works well. The OX is about being bold and opinionated in your design, processes, and the way you work in the digital world. The most effective people and experiences, they're not neutral. They lead with vision, a vision of where you should go as a person, as a user, as a team. So the OX is a place for us to explore these visions and help you get stuff done. I'm Matt Brown, and I've been in sales, solutions, product, and marketing in the B2B SaaS world for the past 10 years. Today, with me, I've got Wade Callison. Wade, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So Wade Callison, I'm Chief Growth Officer at Squid, but like Matt, I've had a career that spanned from consulting and product all the way through to sales, and just this is a topic that I'm super passionate about, so I'm excited we're going to explore it over the next few episodes.
Awesome. Well, I'm really glad you're here, and I'm excited for us to jump into this. I think a lot of people are thinking about these kinds of questions right now. So let's get into some of the status quo. What challenges are you seeing ops leaders, these GSD leaders, get stuff done leaders? What are you seeing them facing right now?
Yeah. So look, this is not going to be a hot take in this moment, but like we're all being asked to do more with less. We're all being asked to have tighter budget constraints as well as to deliver more. And when you really think about that and the impact that that has on operational leaders and really their technology decisions and how they make technology decisions, there's some decisions that operational leaders and product owners are having to make that they may never have had to make or are uncomfortable for them to make. And so I think today what we want to do is explore how to help those GSD leaders make decisions that typically a CIO would have to make. And so we could definitely dig into those today.
All right, awesome. So cost-constrained environment, and let's see, they're dealing with a lot already. What's the landscape look like in terms of technology for a sales ops leader, rev ops leader? What are they having to deal with, and maybe solutions that they already have, solutions that they're evaluating? What's that look like?
Yeah. So during COVID, especially in the digital transformation that's happened recently, there's been a rush to more technology, remote workers, different processes. Buyers are buying differently. Sellers are selling differently. And so there's been this rush to technology. And what I think we've seen is that everyone has a build or buy decision that they're making, or just use what they've already got. And I think those are the three decisions that everyone's facing. When you look at what operational leaders are facing now, I think the SaaS sprawl that's happened, it means that in good times, we buy all the applications that we need. And we end up with all these applications that had a value proposition that's unclear because you've got so many applications that are all competing to be like each other. So you've got those sets of decisions. You've got build decisions, which is, should I go build the software I need? Is it cheaper to go build something than go buy a SaaS solution? And why should I build? And when should I build? And how should I make those decisions? And how do I do that? And then the other decision that a lot of leaders are making is, well, do I just double down on what I've got? Do I tell my people, hey, suck it up. You've already got the applications. They're good enough. Do I enhance them? How do I enhance them? How do I make those decisions as I then look at trying to balance my budget constraints?
All right. So build, buy, double down. Sounds like those are the three options.
Those are the big three. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're familiar with this. I've been at Squid for a while. I've done a lot in working with customers, and obviously we focus on the UI side, but we're interacting with the whole tech stack. So we worked with a lot of customers as they try to explore how do we expand, what do we invest in, both at the UI side, but also integrations. Do we spin up our own database? Do we go with something that's a little bit more controlled, productized? So we've been in this space for a while. We've been on these journeys with customers. So there's nothing new here, but it certainly feels like we're in a bit of a pressure cooker right now. I think in terms of just macroeconomic environment and what everyone's facing. But like you were saying before, build, buy, double down. When it comes to software, I can see how that's something that like a CIO would do or an IT department would have to manage. But are you saying that there's a shift to where it's operational leaders, it's line of business leaders that are having to go through this framework right now?
Yeah, I mean, Gartner's talked about this for years, about how the shift of budgets going from IT to the line of business. And we're seeing that more and more. And we're seeing a bunch of shadow IT. We're seeing a bunch of technology decisions being made at the line of business level. And so you've got this sprawl that's happening. You've got people who are doing citizen development and aren't thinking about the SDLC. So you've got a lot of change that's happening at the line of business level. And the question is how do you govern it, constrain it, and how do you make the right technology decisions vis-a-vis what you need to get done as well as what IT is trying to get done for the organization. And so that shift to having business leaders becoming more like a CIO and having to think like a CIO and think like a product owner. I mean, we don't use the term product manager enough in the industry. Yeah. A product manager, like we talk about product owners in Agile, but product owner in Agile is really that person who's deputized to act like the user. And in some cases, that's just not enough. And I think that what we've got to think about as an operational leader has to think like a product manager, has to have people on their team who think like product management to make sure that we're making the right decisions for the end users and have empathy and are doing the right things. And so this shift of these capabilities are something that we're seeing federated out into the line of business in ways that are exciting because it's closer to where the work's getting done. But it requires a maturity now of process and a maturity of decision making that just is evolving. It's just a growing and evolving maturity.
That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, so putting ourselves in the shoes of an operational leader, which, that's not going to be too hard for you because you actually have to make these decisions, daily, weekly, for our own company in terms of software that we're building or that we're buying.
Yep.
So how do you decide, again, build, buy, double down when you're evaluating that? Is it simply a matter of measuring costs? Obviously, finance is going to be looking at it through that lens, but is there a more effective way to do that? What are some things that we might miss out if that's our only lens?
Yeah, so we'll go through each of those, build, buy, and double down, and we'll talk about each of those. I think that the framework that we found to be most effective is to think about this on this continuum of opinionated and organic, and really thinking about how do you have applications that are opinionated. SaaS applications are opinionated. They do a certain thing. Really good business applications are opinionated. And then on the organic side, you need things that evolve and move and respond to the stimulus of your environment so that you have something that over time grows with you as an organization. And so when you think of build is an attractive option for a lot of people because they get to control their own destiny. I have my own developers, I have my own roadmap, my own backlog, and I control all of that. The problem that we see all too often is that the cost of building it is a fraction of the cost of the ownership. And what ends up happening is that with traditional, even with Agile development is awesome. And I'm a certified Scrum Master and I love Agile development, but Agile often isn't Agile enough because when you take Agile and you go back to standard tooling and standard development practices are hard. You have to document your code. You have to test your code. You have to test harnesses. You have to run all the regression, everything. It's a difficult thing to do. And so what ends up happening is you start a build process, and then sometimes it's 6, 9, 12 months, 18 months until you get the results. And if the last 4 years has taught us anything, the world moves faster than 12 and 18 months development cycles. And so what ends up happening is you go into a dev cycle, you end up coming out of the other end of that dev cycle with something that may not be clear, but it's not exactly what the business needs. The business thought they knew what to tell you at the beginning. What they get back in 12 to 18 months isn't what they expected. The business has moved. And so you end up with this sort of monolithic thing that doesn't keep pace with the organization. And I think this is where we talk about organic. Is if you're going to build, you need to think about how do you build in a way that leverages the new technologies in the market to have a adaptability that keeps pace with the market. And so the big challenge here is making the decision to build for those things that are unique to your business. if you have something that's unique to your business and it's your differentiator, consider building it. If that opinionated experience is not offered by anyone else in the market, you should build it. That's your first decision. The second decision is how should you build it? And you have to build it to be organic so that it grows and adapts to your organization. You've seen this, Matt, where people, if we develop a project for a customer and we develop it in a week or 2 weeks and we put it in front of users, like what's the reaction on those first couple times we get it in front of the user?
Right. It's never exactly, or maybe even close to the right thing.
Yeah. We'll fail 80, 90% of the time because that's what the users thought they wanted. And then we'll do it 2 or 3 more times. And then the users are like, oh, actually, that's actually what I wanted. And we iterate through that with them. And that sort of agility is needed.
I feel like we need to park there for a second because I think that's such a revolutionary idea. And I've seen it in a couple places, but when I look back at our customers, some of my favorite customers, the ones that are they're driving innovation, they're getting every bit of value out of the technology. It's that they love productive failure. Like they love, finding things out fast. And I think that's what you're saying is that if you're going to build, well, speed is really important because you're going to be wrong. So can you find out quickly how wrong you are? And then turn that into iteration and findings. That's great.
Yeah. And if I piggyback on that, like if you think of organizations that are the antithesis of agile, it'd be the U.S. government. The U.S. government is not known for any government. It's not known for being agile. And I think that what I've seen is, and you've been part of these as well, is that the U.S. Air Force was in a process where they were writing big requirements up front, taking it into an agile process and getting something out 6, 9, 12 months later and having the challenges of that. And that had been their process. And when we started working with them, what we started to do is to put a process in where it was a week long, what they branded the Chattanooga experience, which is where we're headquartered. But it was, how do you drive innovation in a week? Show up with a few experts, put them in a room, build rapid prototypes, iterate on those rapid prototypes. So a week later, you have a result that you can show to a general in their case, or an executive in your case, about what was built, and then get that into production as fast as possible. And that's the sort of process that I think we all need to start to embrace, because that then drives innovation. There's nothing more impressive to an organization when a week later you're like, hey, is this what you asked for? You're not going into a hole for 6 months, right? You're really driving innovation. You're driving it fast.
That's great. And I want to move on to the next point, but I do think there's something there that could be really helpful for teams that are in this space right now, where they're trying to figure out, do we build, do we buy, do we double down? Well, before you ever get there, a good question to ask yourself would be, what does our team look like? Is your team set up to go through what you just described, that process of quick discovery, quick failure, and learning? Yep. And that's something that you can shift toward before you ever actually even buy software or commit to a major initiative. Is, can you set up, empowered teams to go and go through that process? So
with again, as we talked about, the product management discipline as well, yes. Right? You have to have, it's not just the technical resources, it's a product person who can help guide that process with you as well. So yeah, let's go to the next topic.
Okay, so that's build. What's next?
Buy. So buy is the one that we, like with SaaS Sprawl, we're all in a rush to buy. And I think that the attractiveness of buy is, we talk about opinionated and organic, very opinionated, right? When you think about buy, if you think about SaaS products especially, like you get into some platforms, we'll talk about them in a bit. Platforms are less opinionated, but SaaS products are opinionated. Gong, very opinionated. Even SalesLoft and all these other products are very opinionated. I think the challenge with opinionated software is that each one of them are a company in and of themselves who are expanding the boundaries of what they do. And so while you may buy a SaaS product, 3 or 4 of them that sort of sit adjacent to each other, over time, they start to encroach on each other in a way that makes it very difficult for you as a business to say, well, there's a dashboard here, and what's my process for this? What's my process for that? The other thing that's a challenge is SaaS software companies, by their nature, have a shared roadmap. You're a shared service that they deliver to the market, and there's a shared roadmap. And so you don't have control over the roadmap and the things that you need for your business. And so what you can find as a business is your business evolves away from what they care about. Where their customers are, you move away from that. And I think the challenge for all of us is, as we are starting to rationalize our portfolios, we all are spending maybe 40, 50, couple $100 a seat for all these licenses, and that adds up. And so the cost of your tech stack, especially in the line of business, it gets onerous very, very quickly. And so I'd say rationalizing down those that you need, building those things that you can build yourself is going to be imperative.
Yeah, there's almost an element where you pick your pillars, and you shouldn't have too many pillars. And build around those pillars, and then then it's a matter of finding other tools and modules that can work in kind of an ecosystem together. So there's this interoperability that you need to think about when you get there. So okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so there's
the only other point I'd make there, Matt, before we move on, is that we talked about build when it's to your distinct differentiation as a business. Buy when it's not. So if you're thinking about SaaS,
yes,
if it's a commodity, like just buy that. If it's something that's a utility, buy that. And think about that there. If it's unique to your business, don't trust it to someone else's roadmap.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Yeah, it's interesting. I think about some of the organizations that I've worked with over the years. Like, if you're selling a disruptive product, there's a good chance you're selling it in such a way, or you're packaging it up in such a way that it doesn't conform to the standard, CRM widget style. And that's not just a technology decision. It's about how you run your business, because that way that you package, that way that you sell is actually the thing that should be giving you an edge on the competition. So, okay, that's helpful. Okay. So build, buy, and then the last one is double down. Let's talk about double down.
Yeah, let's define double down. So double down is really about taking technologies that you've already purchased and that have leverageability, and either one, telling your folks to suck it up and just use it, or two, trying to make do with what sort of comes out of the box. And I think the challenge here is platform products. Pick a platform, whether it's ServiceNow or Salesforce or Workday, they all come with abundance of flexibility and screens and UIs that are supposed to work for just about anyone. The fact is they don't work for anyone, right? They're not built for your business, my business, the next person's business. And so by forcing your employees to use screens, UIs, applications that are not customized to your business, you get a bunch of unclean data. Like, how many times have you seen a salesperson throw some value into a field because it just is a required field and I don't care? And that's a bunch of unclean data. And then we spend so much money cleaning the data on the back end, right? We have employees that we're hiring remotely now. We're not able to do the same level of training, and they're coming in and they're confused and they're not productive. And I think that what you're seeing is that this challenge of trying to force our employees into these platforms and to double down on, look, we already spent X million dollars on this major platform, is the wrong decision to make, because it's not in the best interest of your employees, the productivity of your employees. You're not going to get more done with less. That's the antithesis of that, right? You may be saving a buck on the budget side, you think, but you're definitely constraining yourself on the get more done with less side.
That makes sense. So if double down just means suck it up, then what we're talking about it seems like you're saying users are going to get forced down one of two paths. If what the company invested in was a platform like a ServiceNow or Salesforce, that means you are forcing users into a neutral, quote unquote, neutral experience. In other words, it's not opinionated, and that's going to have problems. And then the other option would be maybe you invested in something that is highly opinionated, and you are doing something this way, the Sales Loft way. And I'm not picking on Sales Loft. From everything I hear, it's a great product. But let's say you invested in that, and so now you're going to do things the Sales Loft way, and it's highly opinionated. And there's a chance that your organization, maybe it's not a good fit. Maybe you need to tweak it. Maybe you need to adapt, either to the market or the way that you guys work. And so, but the point is that there's that rigidity that keeps you from being able to adapt. So double down could mean force your users either into a neutral and inefficient experience, or an opinionated and wrong experience that they're gonna run against limitations and frustrations with.
Absolutely. That's exactly the struggle.
But is that the only thing that double down can mean? Are there other ways that you can approach? Because I guarantee that's what everyone is hearing from their finance department right now.
Yeah. And look at, And I think this is where the smart GSD leaders that we talk to on a daily basis understand that those platforms are an absolute bedrock for productivity. They've got all the data. They've got the ability to rapidly evolve with you, but the user experience is not what you need. And so when you think about build, buy, double down, there's actually a hybrid approach here, which is leverage those platforms to do what they do really well. They are amazing at this. When I talked with a guy, Alex Azanoff from Door 3 Consulting, he gave me the stat, and it stuck with me, which is 60% of a digital transformation, 60% of the value of a digital transformation comes from the UI UX. And when we think of digital transformation, we think about, okay, we put Salesforce, ServiceNow, or whatever else as our basis of our digital transformation. Yes. Now we're going to go through the data cleansing, the process rationalization. Yeah, there's value there, but build that experience layer that gives you 60% of your value fast. Do what we said in the build. Build rapidly on top of leverageable technologies and platforms. Do the things you need to do to remove the SaaS products that you don't need, because you can put them back into your core platforms. Your employees are happier when they're inside of their core systems doing something in one screen rather than 2 and 3 screens, and you're able to bring hybrid applications together. There's a much better way to do their work. There's a much more cost-effective way to evolve your technology and be much more agile in that approach.
Yeah, that's great. So it's not it's not binary. It's not either or. And I'm also hearing you say that it seems like there's some other options in terms of how you look at double down. You can focus on enhancing, extending, expanding. A lot of E words there. I think sometimes people look at big technology expenses, and if you're not getting your value, or you look to see, are you getting your value or you're not? And if you're not, then do we migrate to another big platform or another big tool? And you're looking at, who knows how many months to do that.
Oh, years.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's another good piece of advice for where we are right now, is that double down can mean incremental value through extending, through and enhancing, in terms of what you actually do with what you've got.
And I think, Matt, if I could piggyback on that, there's going to be some technologies that you probably shouldn't enhance and you don't want to enhance. And I think what people end up doing is they allow, so when you build something, it's this typical of build. You build something, you don't fix it over time, it becomes less and less useful to those people that need it on a daily basis. So what do? You decide it's no good anymore, whether you bought it or built it, it's no good anymore. We're going to Chernobylize it, right? We're going to wrap it in concrete, stick it in a corner until it dies, and we're going to go build something new. And I think that strategy of allowing something to decay in a corner is not in anyone's best interest, right? If you can leverage it, if you can reskin it. If you can start to make it more agile and more organic, as we talked about, you should do that. And you should find a way to wrap it in an organic layer, not a concrete layer, because your employees will value that and they'll get the value in weeks and months rather than months and years.
We were talking about this earlier today, and there was an airline company recently that ran into something like that because they had just put off this idea of like investing in their own technology again and again and again. And there was this great Twitter thread that went into the airline groundings and all the technology decisions that kind of went up to that and what the actual system was that they were looking at. And it was like, oh, it might be that they were only looking at this through the lens of costs and not thinking about what the value is in the technology and in the processes and the people that they had. And you get to the point where at some point that debt is going to be paid. And you can only go it for so long. So there's a ton of risks if Double Down becomes this long-term strategy, and you let things decay in the corner like that, as opposed to turning it into cultivation of your technology.
It's called headline risk, right? Headline risk is the risk that you show up in the headlines of the paper because one of these core systems fails on you. And this airline got tremendous headline risk. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for all the executives.
Yep. Well, we're coming up on time here. What are the top 3 takeaways for someone listening who wants to take something from this and get better tomorrow?
Yeah. So look, number 1, make sure that if you're building something that's unique to you in your organization. Build in a way that it maintains your agility so that you can change rapidly as your business changes. So number 1. Number 2, these neutral platforms like a Salesforce, a ServiceNow, and others are incredible foundations for your business applications, but they rarely fit you out of the box. And so don't assume that just because you spent a couple $1 million on a product that everyone's using, so therefore it must be right. It's not right, and it won't be right for you. Spend the time to invest in the right user experience for your users, whether that's using the out-of-the-box tooling, if that fits you, or going with something that's more specialized like a Squid or something else that allows you to do that. Again, not a push for us, but we just see enough of that we know that those sorts of gains are possible. And then I think the last one is really when we talked about buy. Make those first 2 decisions as a way to evaluate your SaaS portfolio and remove the duplications that you've got so you can simplify the end-to-end workflow and you can reduce your cost. And so when we started at the beginning, how do you reduce cost? You reduce cost by removing technologies that are overlapping. How do you get more out of your business? Making sure that you've got opinionated experiences that fit your business. And when you do that, your employees will be happier and they'll get more done.
Awesome. So if we're asking whether to build, buy, or double down, we should use that framework of opinionated design, but also keeping things organic. And hopefully that will help us navigate next couple of months, next year or so. And hopefully that's true for you if you're listening today. So thank you for joining us. And if you find this useful, give me a way to follow on LinkedIn for more conversations, and stay tuned for the next episode of the OX. All right, we'll see you.